Because my father was in the banking business and it was normal that you worked with your father. Subsequently, he died, and in 1959, I became very friendly with Jimmy Goldsmith. And Jimmy Goldsmith was in a nightclub in Paris with Charlie Clore. And Charlie Clore had just bought Mappin and Webb. And in Mappin and Webb, he found 28 chemist shops called Lewis and Burroughs. And Charlie Clore, first of all, looked at what other chemist chains were available. And at the time, there was Timothy White's and Boots. They were too big for him to buy, so he decided to sell these 28 chemist shops. Jimmy agreed to buy these 28 chemist shops from Charlie Clore in the nightclub in Paris. He came to see me the next day and he told me that he had just done that. And I said, Jimmy, I'll join you. And so I did. And this was in December '59. I was supposed to go to St. Moritz the next day. So I said, Jimmy, I better cancel my trip to St. Moritz. He said, don't cancel anything. So then we closed on the deal in the end of January. And after that, so we had these 28 chemist shops, and we thought, how would we expand them? The first thing we did was with one of the shops, we put in a soda fountain because that was very popular in the States. This was a big failure. And then Jimmy used to go to Paris all the time, and there was a very successful chain in France called Prénatal. So Jimmy said that we should open similar shops in the UK. We went to see the president of Prénatal, Monsieur Mazar, who was very pleased to see these two young men who spoke French and who wanted to do a deal with him. And so we signed the know-how agreement with him. And we told him that we were going to have these chemist shops that had a department doing everything for the mother to be in her baby. He said that was a very bad idea and that it should be separate shops and not together. I remember Jimmy and I leaving his office. The door was hardly closed. He says, what does he know? We know much better that we will benefit from our qualities as pharmacists to do this. We opened two of these shops, one in West Ealing and one in Kingston. Spent a fortune on them. They were a complete disaster. Then we were very lucky because there was an agent called John Ritblatt who called us one Thursday and said there were 50 pram and nursery furniture shops that were closing down, called W.J. Harris, a very old chain, and that all the shops were available. Jimmy and I went to visit 11 of the shops on Saturday, and we agreed to buy the chain on the following Tuesday. And that was the beginning of Mothercare. And at the time we had an advertising agency, not St. Luke's. And so we wanted to find a name for our new chain. And we thought Birthright was a wonderful name. Thank God it wasn't available. And so the advertising agency came up with the name Mothercare, and that's how the name came about. I had never been into a retail shop, so to speak. I'd been to my tailor, I'd been to my shoemaker, I'd been to my shirt maker, but I had not been in a retail shop, so I didn't know anything about retailing at all. So, and then we were going to learn about this market, and that's it. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. Early days were very, we didn't know what we were doing. Except Prénatal was there to help us. We had a know-how agreement with them.
So they showed us, first of all, how to display the stores. But prenatal had everything in drawers. It was not the open display. And then we went over from the way they were displaying it to the open display. That's right. At first they told us that women would not like it if it was all open display. That's why prenatal had it all the other way. But we felt it was the better way to go. That's it. We had the window display also, and we were spending a lot of money on window displays. But I decided that we should not have window displays and it should be all open. Jimmy was my partner up to January 1962. Then he wanted to go back to Paris, so I bought him out at the time. And then there was a man who came to see me called Barney Goodman, who had a background in textiles. And he came to see me because he wanted to start a similar chain. And I told him I'd give him every help and tell him what mistakes I'd made so that he will not make the same mistakes. He then decided that he'd rather join me than open his own, and so he did join me. And he had really a lot of experience in retailing and buying merchandise. We wanted really to offer a second wind to a lot of women because they'd had children, the children were grown up, and they were looking to do something new. So some of our advertising for staff personnel was for ladies with their second wind. You see, when I left the business, we employed 5,000 people. Most of them were women. Even today, I'm sure that most people that you employ are women. That's right. I did really not understand stock control. And then we employed someone in our company in the States who understood stock control, who came to England and taught me about the Kimball system. And so we introduced Kimball to all our merchandise. And then in 1965, we brought in an IBM computer, which was way ahead of its time. And we brought it in only for one thing, stock control. And we became obsessed with stock control, and this is what we developed mainly. I was with Mothercare. I built it over 22 years, and I loved every minute of it. But I found near the end that I had not been as good as I had been somehow, and that I needed to renew myself. That's why I sold the business. Since then, they've done enormous things worldwide, but the business has been run down something terrible in the UK, absolutely. It has nothing to do with the business that I built. The only things in common are the name and the customers. Otherwise, it has nothing to do with the business that I built. But I have a feeling, the way they've reached out to me, that they really want to bring it back in many ways to the way it was run. And of course, they have an enormous opportunity now. Well, I was really in the item business. Stock control was an essential part of our business. Every SKU had a meaning. And for example, when I would visit the stores, the first thing I would visit would be the stock room, not the shop itself. Because at the time, in the stock room, every time they received merchandise, they had to put a week number on it. And I would look only at the week numbers. And if it was a very old week number, I would know that item wasn't selling. So my whole approach to the business was what stock we had, how we were selling it, and whether it was appealing to the customers. The catalog is essential. A baby is a major capital expenditure. So our catalog was a sales aid for the personal shopper. So they would come into our store, get the catalog, the young couple could sit together at home and budget their expense because of the catalog. Now, the catalog imposed an enormous discipline on us, because if we wanted the young couple to act that way, we had to have the merchandise in the stores for them to come in and not be disappointed. And so this is what we did. The catalog was essential. The catalog today has nothing to do with the catalog as we had it. Our catalog was a sales aid for the personal shopper. You see, there was nobody in the UK who was catering for the baby on a mass basis. You had John Lewis, who was doing it, but very upper end. And there was nobody really doing it as a chain all over the country, so we provided this. Mothercare played an important part in their lives, and we did a very good job with them, with our limited range. You see, I wanted to have always a limited range to pre-select for the customer if possible, because it was better for the business, and they didn't need this enormous choice. Now they all think they need this enormous choice. I'm not so sure. Okay? Oh, I'll tell you a celebrity. We were selling sandals because we went up to 10 years old. So every year the same customer would come back and find the fault in the sandals they bought the previous year. And I had a most generous policy. I never questioned anything. So the same customer managed to get all our range of sandals for the first purchase. But I never questioned the return. That was my policy, that because the majority of people are honest. There are very few dishonest people. Yes, if there was one mantra, it was everything had to be simple and had to be logical. And that's why we had the best systems of anybody in the world as far as stock control is concerned. So we were in Brixton and we needed bigger space. And this building became available in Watford. It was a confectionery or sweet factory. And so we bought it, and then there was a man who worked here who was called Mr. Jenkins. He was a sort of army man, a sort of major. So I had him go around to everybody who was going to move to Watford with us and ask them each how much space they needed in this new big building and so on. And so they all told him what they wanted. So then he came to see me and said, Mr. Zilkha, you haven't bought enough space really. In any case, what you're doing is Victorian. Me? Victorian? Yes, he said. There's a company called Mars Bars. They do not have offices for anybody. It's completely open plan. So then and there I took the decision that's what it would be, but of course being a cautious man, I went to Slough, got into Mars and saw what it was, completely open plan. So they had some offices, but I decided once I'm going open plan, it's going to be open plan. So nobody had an office. I didn't have an office. Nobody had an office. So the man who was building the business with me, Barney Goodman, was in charge of personnel. So I told him this. He says, but I can't. Personnel is a very confidential. I can't possibly be in an open plan. So I said to him, well, Barney, what you'll have to do if you have a confidential conversation is to go outside and walk around with people. But so we had them, now they claim they have open plan, but it's not true. It's only It's not true. It's not true. They have offices and everything. But anyway, I went to open plan, and I was highly successful. Me?
Did you have an office?
Of course not.
No. So
It was 100% open plan. My office was there. Anybody could come and talk to me at any time. And you'd see, and you'd go up to somebody's desk. If you wanted to talk to someone, you go to somebody's desk and you talk to them. Well, first of all, I would visit the stores a lot, and then we had very good store management and so on. Actually, our stores were very, very good, very well-run stores. I'm hoping now that the UK will come back to that, and I think they're making a real effort. Every year, twice a year, when we bring up the new catalog, we would have these meetings. And actually, they were very funny meetings because I can't remember some of the things, but just incredible things out of nowhere. That's right. When we were presenting our catalog, new catalog, and the new merchandise, and to show them what the new merchandise was, and also what any new ideas that we had to present to them. You see, but there was no continuity once I sold. It was continuity for a little bit. And then, of course, all these principles were lost, especially how to control stock, how to put in stock and all that. So, you see, we had warehouses, and then I decided that we should no longer have a warehouse, and that everything should be direct delivery. So we had the most wonderful system. We had the Kimball tickets, and they would all be back here by the Tuesday following the Saturday sales. We would print out the new orders for the manufacturers, send the manufacturers the call-off, showing them exactly what we had sold of their particular merchandise the last week. The stores were given what they're supposed to receive. I would send the check to the manufacturers with the call-off. When we sent them the order to deliver, they were not allowed to bank that check for 4 weeks. So I trusted them. So now if the stores did not receive the merchandise within 3 weeks, then they would do a notice that they hadn't received it, and we would deduct the amount from the next check to that manufacturer. I'd accept no invoices, no statements. I didn't have to do any of that. It was all eliminated. Now, nobody else in the world has ever done that, and I don't think they'd be able to do it now again. Oh yes, I used to visit the suppliers by helicopter. Used to land here. Now it was, of course, convenient, but we would get there very quickly. But it was a very good PR thing also, right? Because you can imagine these manufacturers, right? Suddenly a helicopter coming down and all their people there and so on. So it was a dual thing. But it was a question of convenience for us to be able to visit them all. First of all, I wanted to have very few suppliers. And I wanted to do more and more business with these few suppliers. If we had a new idea, we would tell the supplier about it and to see whether he could manufacture this new idea or not. We were very concentrated, really. They were an extension of us, actually. But I tell you what we did. We designed a lot of our own products with our manufacturers. At the time, they don't even do business with them anymore. It was a company called Bissell, and they had a very fine designer. And we designed so many unusual products that were unique to us. And we paid for the molds. I was prepared to pay for the molds, so we would own it. And then these were exclusive to us. We designed a wonderful sterilizer unit. We designed an item which I'm sure would be even more popular today than it was then, a ball barrow instead of a wheelbarrow, a ball barrow, which was original. Then Bissell had the thing called the baby box, but they were not selling any of this. But we introduced it as a baby box, and we sold so many of them because very convenient for the mother to put all the things of the baby in the box and so on. Anyway, the customer is so important. We've got to have good displays. We've got to have a friendly feeling to our customers. They're going through a very special period of their lives, and we've got to understand this. But I'm sure this is there anyway. This is just human beings, isn't it? Nothing more.
Just great to hear you
I
talking
hope so.
about that.
I hope it was good.
Absolutely
Very
delightful.
What?
Absolutely.
Very good.
Okay.
Really love that. Really love that. Thank you so much.
My favourite
Okay.
story was the poker one.
What?
The backgammon one.
Oh.
What was the backgammon? What was the backgammon?
Well, I didn't tell
What's the
them.
Oh, you
backgammon
didn't
story?
tell them, no.
No, what's the
I
backgammon story?
didn't,
Oh,
I
go
didn't
on,
think it
tell
was
them.
right. What?
Go on, just tell these guys. It's
Right.
brilliant.
What's the backgammon story?
So I'll tell you. So Jimmy Goldsmith, who was my partner, who started the whole thing, who had the biggest influence on my life, he wanted to go back to live in Paris in January '62, after we've been in this for 2 years. So now I had to buy him out. And there was a difference of £8,500 between what I wanted to pay him and what he wanted. So he said, Selim, let's have 3 backgammon games. And he was a much better player than me. There was no comparison. So now I win the first game. He wins the second game. Do you play backgammon?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little.
So the third game, he says, well done, Selim, you've won. All I had to do was not throw a 1. And he had to throw a double 5 or better. What do you think I did? I threw a 1, and he threw a double 5. And so I lost the £8,500. Am I pleased that happened? Of course, because I would not have had a story to tell you today.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.